What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Mountain Witch Tarot channel. Today we are talking about Donald Trump's biggest blunder to date, the Jeffrey Epstein client list, fiasco, kerfuffle, shenanigans, if you will. I'm your host, Sarah, by the way, and we're going to go over some of the biggest issues right now surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein situation and how Donald Trump's going to react, how this all plays out for Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, everybody involved, Ghislaine Maxwell. So real quick before we get started, if you haven't yet, go ahead and click that like button. And if you like political divination, feel free to stick around, hit the subscribe button. Also, I always forget to tell you guys, turn on notifications because I want to start going live at some point. But you won't get notified that I'm live if you don't have the notifications on. So hit that little bell button and turn on all notifications if you're interested in tuning into some future live streams. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I think I want to know, and I think let's do 5 cards. I don't really like 5-card Lenormand spreads, but let's do 5 cards for, can Donald Trump make this whole thing go away with the Epstein files? Is he, because you guys know he's notorious for just making things go away and vanish. And, he's one of those people that, this card is eager to come out. He's one of those people who can fall in a pile of you-know-what and come out smelling like a rose. So, unfortunately, for all the rest of us, he gets away with a lot. So, 5 cards down. Can Trump make this Epstein situation go away like he always does? So I think what we're seeing here is this is one of his greatest fears. And I think it being one of his greatest fears, it's going to inevitably psychologically make it more difficult for him to cover this story up, sweep it under the rug. Over here, we do have his loyalists, and remember the political reassignments to the cards apply in all political readings here. So we have his loyalists working really hard to change the narrative, most likely. We don't have the book card here, but loyalists and change or transformation, pretty obvious that they are trying to change the situation. But over here, it kind of looks like, with the sun and the broom, kind of seeing a little bit of a clue to the fact that, he's done this so many times before. This may be the time that gets all of the attention. This may be, and that's what I've said from the beginning too, is that, he's had a lot of luck in the past covering things up, but this is one thing that is rooted too deeply in MAGA's identity. And the MAGA ideal, the MAGA identity, that's what drives the cult mentality. And when you start chipping away at that foundation, that's when you start to get through to people. That's when people start to deconstruct and pull apart. So it doesn't look to me like Donald Trump is going to be able to make this situation go away. But now let's take a look, just because I'm curious, is he going to do the thing where he tries to ignore it until it goes away? Let me rephrase that. Let's get 7 cards. What is going to be his strategy to get rid of this? What is his strategy right now? The anchor. Looks like we've got a sense of staying put, staying still, staying in place. Let's get 3 cards on the left. What's going to be his strategy? So here we have him. We have the book, more stuff coming out. Looks like there could be more secrets that are yet to be released about this situation. We have the ring card. Cyclical comes to mind. Maybe every time he thinks that he's got this situation under control, more comes out. more things are exposed. The garden. Garden is about opening up. It's about togetherness. It's about being with people, being surrounded by people, drawing public attention. And then after the garden, we have the child, which is a card of newness and growing and immature things and childlike things and so forth. And then we have the lily. Now, we reassigned this card in political readings to be his presidential duty to the country. Oh, wow. Okay, so just kind of starting here, probably shouldn't start here, but we're going to start here. So with this is the country, and not necessarily the people who already knew what kind of person he was, because I know it's hard to fathom that there are people out there who don't know what we know and see what we see about Donald Trump. I understand that, but you also have to understand that there are a lot of people who just are oblivious. They just think like, oh, he's just another politician and gas was cheap when he was a president before. So that's good enough for me. He didn't affect my personal life. He didn't do anything horrendous to me, just because they don't know exactly what he did. So this is basically creating a situation where another side of him is revealed to the public. And this is essentially people seeing him in a different light. So you got all this public attention, but it's new public attention, and it's all focused on his presidential duties to the country. So I think, he's stuck in a place where people are going to see him in the most negative light that they've seen him in so far. So you may or may not have seen this, but currently, Donald Trump's strategy is to blame this on the Democrats. So he's going around telling all the news cameras that Joe Biden made this whole thing up. The Democrats did it. It was Obama. It was Hillary. The whole thing is a hoax. I'm just wondering how MAGA perceives this. And primarily, I guess my question would be, is MAGA going to buy this story? This is going to be a problem for a long time. Here we have the loyalists, and I would say that because the dog came out here, and we're not necessarily talking about like his famous loyalists, we're talking about MAGA, just the civilian MAGA. This would kind of refer to them. So they've been loyal to him for a long time. This is a card of time and a long time. This is, a building that's been around for a good long time. This is also a vantage point. This is a lot to do with seeing things from high up. So, you've got a better vantage point with the Tower card. And then right in the center, you've got the mountain here, which is a big obstacle, a big challenge, something that you can't just get over. You can't just walk over a mountain. It's going to take a lot more on Trump's part if he wants to sell a new lie to his base and get them to believe it, because they're not buying it. And I think, it's telling us here that even the most loyal, the most loving are going to see this from a different perspective, and they're not going to be able to just get over it. I love that for Trump. I love that for him. That's awesome. Now I'm really curious about a list. Will Trump begrudgingly release a list? And we're going to do this one a little different. I want to know if he's going to release a list, but I also want to know if it's going to be a doctored list. So we're going to lay down quite a few cards for this and see what we can get. This might have been better answered in 2 separate questions with short spread, but we're going to do it this way. Something's telling me to do it this way. It's interesting that we got these cards again on this row, because you might recognize these cards from one of the other short spreads that we just did, because we have these 2 cards were there And do we have the clouds? We didn't have the clouds. We had the mountain. But now we've got the bear and the clouds. So this is the same answer right here that we had before. With the caveat of, or well, not a caveat, but with the addition of the bear and the clouds, which, that's kind of changing this loyalist refusing to just get over this situation because this is too big and they are really lost in the sauce right now. This is them feeling the confusion and hitting the wall of cognitive dissonance in a very big way. So, and also, there's kind of a double meaning here that they are now doubting Trump because in this circumstance, if you're looking at it from this perspective, from their perspective, this would be Trump because it's, the bear card is a card of authority, a big boss, a very important person. It's also a card about having something to lose. And now there's all this doubt surrounding. Incidentally, this is also at the heart of the reading. And since this is a 5x3, we only have one card instead of 4 like we do with a grand tableau at the heart of the reading. So this is the most important card as far as the story goes. Now, looking at some of the other significant areas of this small spread, this is not really a GT and it's not really a portrait. It's a little bigger than a portrait. We've got the scythe and the fish. We've got the rider and the stork. So there's a little sense here of the rider bringing news of something being quickly and, quickly cut with precision, painful, sharp, all these things that kind of go along with the scythe. And then a lot of deep movement. Now, normally, the fish card would kind of talk about finances and stuff here, but in this context, this is a deep issue. So bringing news of a big change happening within a deep situation. So this situation, I think, is going to turn out to be quite a bit deeper than what we expected. And so our question was, are they going to release a doctored list? So in that context, for that particular question, what are these 4 corners telling us? They're telling us that this goes so much deeper, that this is not going to be as simple as releasing a list. It's not going to be as simple as seeing a bunch of names on a piece of paper. Figuratively and literally, this is going to run so deep and there's going to be so much to it that it's basically, I feel like it's going to have to be unwound a little bit like a ball of yarn. You know what I mean? So let's see, what else have we got here? So we know what this line is. We know what the 4 corners are. We know what's at the heart of the story. Let's take a look at the fate line real quick. I'm going to just scoot these up. So since we're working with a smaller spread, we don't have as much context to go with, but I'll tell you what I'm getting from these 3 cards right here. These are institutions that are, think of Congress, think of the Senate, think of, different factions of political groups asking for information. I think it's finally set in, especially for the Democrats, because the Democrats tend to back off of things too quickly. They tend to always want to just take the high road, and that, it's like they're terrified of being poo-pooed, but they're not afraid of fascism. I don't know. It's kind of wild if you ask me, but they're not always willing to fight back. And I talked about this in a previous video. They've got to get to a point where they're willing to fight fire with fire. Which I never understood that phrase, because you fight fire with water. I don't know. What you guys know what I'm talking about. Fight fire with fire is the expression, and that's the one we're going to go with, nonsensical as it is. But this is them, not just them. This is a lot of different factions of people asking for answers. Now, the fate line's an interesting part of any grand tableau type spread. A lot of times it just restates your question, and it doesn't always give you an ending point to the story. But I think in this scenario, it kind of is. It's telling us that people are going to keep bringing this up, as they should, because that's That's what I'm preaching about, fight fire with fire. Keep bringing it up. And that's exactly what this is telling us. So, for the question, will a list be released and will it be doctored? It's not going to be that simple. We're going to continue to see people bringing this up. They are going to, here's another expression for you, they're going to beat a dead horse. But it's not really a dead horse. So, yeah, they're definitely not going to let this leave the spotlight anytime soon, I don't think. We're going to be hearing about this. And this is just my conjecture, but when it happens, you know what I mean? When it happens, I think that's when we're going to see the biggest movement come about. As far as all these big secrets go, that's when a lot of things are going to come out because, then there won't be the motivation to protect the Orange Menace's reputation, and people won't be afraid of facing persecution because of him and his temper tantrums and his seemingly unlimited power. And, we may be getting close to that time. So I foresee this issue spanning the rest of his natural life. I think we're not going to get quick answers on this situation, but, we will eventually. I just think, it'll probably be too late. By the time we know the whole story, DJT won't even be around anymore. So we won't get to see him, cry in front of TV cameras about how he's innocent. Anyway, let's get back to the spread here. So we didn't go over the top line. So the top line is pretty interesting. Did we go over the top line? No, not by itself. Okay, so we have the scythe, we have the birds, we have... I always get that card mixed up with Crossroads. That's the anchor card. And then we have the lily and the rider. Now, the lily, of course, is reassigned to Donald Trump's presidential duty to the country. And it is quite interesting how the top line is restating what was in this line, and this line is restating a spread that we got earlier. So kind of a little redundant to tell you this, but there is, with these cards, this came out a couple weeks ago in a reading. I'm going to point it out again. You guys might remember me saying this. There is some element of silencing voices, because that's exactly what I'm kind of getting the vibe for here. Silencing voices, because probably these voices are not going to let up on discussing Donald Trump's behavior, his choices, his mistakes in the past, who he really is. All of those things are kind of wound up in the Lily card. And that's actually like the original meaning of a Lenormand Lily card, is like all of those types of things, like your virtue and your integrity and your, how trustworthy are you? How honest are you? And the messenger, of course, the horse rider bringing all of this. So there's just this continual state of fighting to overwhelm these voices, to shut them down, to keep them from talking. And it looks like, this is attached to his loyalists. So I think the loudest voices that are going to potentially, he's going to try to potentially silence are his own supporters and loyalists. And, but they're going to keep it up. They're going to keep the momentum going. In fact, I think that they'll be the ones primarily to perpetuate this story and keep it in the news. So I think that pretty much covers everything. This bottom line here, I don't know, we didn't really fully go over it, but it's kind of telling us the same thing over and over on every single line. And usually when Lenormand tells me something like that, I kind of know that we're hitting a dead end as far as answers go, because a lot's going to change. So it's going to be hard for us to tell us how this plays out if there are so many moving parts. But here we have public attention. The public is watching. They're watching these repeated attempts for Donald Trump to recover his emotional well-being, because it's deeply tied into this. He's a malignant narcissist. So if you've ever known anyone who was a malignant narcissist, like a real one, and not just a bad person in general, they can't handle being accused of what they actually did. It breaks them. And so it is of utmost importance to him to reestablish his emotional well-being here and to, be able to put on his mask of grandiosity or whatever. But there's so many deep changes coming, and I think that's why we're getting these two cards for, this one for our exit card here. Like, all the parts are moving, so much is going to change. I think this is a reference to look forward to lots and lots of change. We did not get the letter card. Once again, just want to point that out. So there is no clear answer here as to, will a list be released and will it be doctored? I think it's probably too early to say because there's too much, just too many things, too many deep-rooted things that have to kind of be unwound. So we're going to try to cover 3 questions here, all regarding Pam Bondi. The 3 questions we are looking for an answer to: will Pam Bondi be thrown under the bus for this? Will Pam Bondi ultimately resign because of this? And does she know too many secrets on Donald Trump for him to sabotage her in any way? Now, I know what I think about these 3 questions, but I want to see what divination has to say about it. And if you don't know, I have a video from, like a month or 2 ago where I did Pam Bondi's political future. Now, it's getting kind of strange. Granted, I do need to go back and rewatch that, but I feel like I'm kind of seeing some things come to pass from that Lenormand spread. So we're going to do another 5x3 and kind of try to pick up some details regarding those 3 questions and see if we can get any of them answered. All right, we've got our 3x5 laid out. Let's go ahead and pull our fate line together. I believe that card's wanting to come out. All right. Coffin is our center fate line card. The fox for self-interest and work. Rats. Interesting. That's a really bad fate line. So we're just going to set that right there. So to answer the question, essentially what is going to be Pam Bondi's outcome from this? Her ultimate outcome is here in the fate line. An ending, self-interest, and destruction that leaves a mess for a really long time. She will probably meet her political fate because of this, but we're going to kind of explore up here to get the details of it. But she's going to forevermore be known for the job that she did regarding this. And I think to some degree, she most likely will become the scapegoat for it. This will be essentially the end of her time in the administration, I think. Her, going back to her self-interest and her attempt to preserve herself, it's greatly diminished and can't really be fixed. Interestingly, she did not show up in her spread. Always peculiar when that happens. She's not here. There is no woman card, no significator to represent Pam Bondi. So that probably is a good indicator of how much emotionally and mentally she is distancing herself from this situation. So we're going to start right in the middle, right here. Much like Donald Trump, she is stuck in this situation. She has the anchor card. She's got a lot riding on this situation, a lot tied up, a lot emotionally invested, and she's stuck in place. She can't really go anywhere. Normally, and I feel like I should point this out, normally the anchor card is like one of the best cards in the deck. In the original Game of Hope, it's how you win the game. So keep that in mind as we go, because we may circle back to that to see if there's any reference to her coming out on top in any way, because based on this fate line, I don't see Pam Bondi coming out with a good resolution in this situation. But just to play devil's advocate, just to be fair, under normal circumstances, if this wasn't a political reading, there would be some positive cards here to indicate that maybe things are not going to be quite as bad. There are a lot of bad cards here too, though. Anyway, so she's got a lot tied up in this, a lot riding on this. She's stuck in place. She has this form of access. She has like a type of control, almost like the keys of fate. At least she thinks she does. But as we see down here in the fate line, that key, it looks like it may open up the wrong door. So that's kind of interesting. Now, at the four corners, let's take a look at the four corners. She's loyal because she has something to lose. I think she's in this for the long run. I think that, let's see, how does the child factor into this? This is kind of interesting. This is her thinking that she has longevity. I feel like there is a big gap in how she perceives her time and her place versus what it'll actually be. So a little bit of an enigmatic answer here, but I think it fits in well in the context, of what happens to her because of this situation. And she's loyal, big protective energy, staying with Donald Trump, staying by his side, being like I don't want to say lap dog because that's not technically, she's more of like a Rottweiler on a logging chain at this point for Donald Trump. But a little bit of an enigmatic answer here. Hopefully that makes sense, though. She sees herself as someone with longevity, but the truth is that it is more fragile than she knows. Now let's see, what else do we have next? I think she is also optimistic about, this is probably restating what the four corners are saying, essentially, is that she is optimistic about longevity in this situation. And, that has a lot to do with her loyalty. It has a lot to do with, maybe this is a coveted position for her. And maybe she's one of those people who like to go on ego trips or something. And so, there are a lot of things that are really important to her coming out in this spread. And I think it's starting to become clear that that's why she's going to hang on so tightly. She's not going to go without a fight. The Bear and Crossroads and Child, let's take a look at this one over here. I think she feels like if she has to deviate from the path or the plan or whatever strategy, I think she feels confident that she can handle it. But again, don't forget these three cards down here, and don't forget the fact that this runs right through the middle, which is telling us that she thinks she has the keys of fate in her hand because she's so deeply invested in this situation, but these keys are going to open the wrong door. So as I say this, keep that in mind, is that she may be confident that she can successfully, strategically deviate from the plan, but I think she's in for a big surprise. Right over on this side, we have, like a reference to her loyalty, her virtue. It is, it's shallow. It is for the wrong reasons. And it will ultimately be part of her downfall here because, it leads us into this energy of destruction and a mess made that is hard to clean up. Obviously, there's extra emphasis because this came in the fate line. It's not just one of the other cards in the spread. And then let's see, which cards have we not covered? So I guess we've not done this line. So we have the Garden, the Scythe, and the Moon, and the Fox. And this is a clear representation of public perception of reputation because we do have the Moon here. There's also a sense of fears. I think there's kind of a double meaning where she's thinking that maybe she can kind of cut through the fears and proceed past this situation, that there is some way around this. If she just works hard enough, she can kind of eliminate this fearful public spectacle. But that's also, it's going to lead into these three cards down here, which is ultimately a bad sign. But there's also a double meaning, like I said. So, we do have representation of reputation, long-standing reputation, a reputation of getting away with things, of always, having the keys to the right door. And that's going to change for the first time because the public is paying too much attention and they are starting to see through the lies, the deception, the deceit, and all of the malicious activity that's been going on. So to answer the question, just circle back to this, will Pam Bondi be thrown under the bus? Will she ultimately resign because of this? And does she know too many secrets for Donald Trump to throw her under the bus? Essentially, I think to answer the questions of this spread, we have to look at the overall vibe of this, and the vibe is that Pam Bondi is going to hang on, and there's no reference to her directly or to Trump directly, so we can't look for context about them and their reactions or their perceptions of the situation. But she's definitely clinging on and refusing to let go because she's convinced that she can fix this. So for these questions, we're going to switch over to tarot, because we need something a little more open-ended, a little bit more detail, a little more room for interpretation so that we can pick up on nuance. And the questions we're going after this time, we're looking for answers to whether or not Mike Johnson is being sincere in his demand for the Epstein files, because I find it incredibly hard to believe that Mike Johnson would ever go against Trump. So one of the things that I'm kind of wondering is Mike Johnson convinced that Trump is innocent, and so he's doing this thinking he's doing Trump a favor, when realistically he may be putting one of the final nails in the coffin? You know what I mean? So I'm just curious, like, where does his where are his intentions? Like, what are they when it comes to this? We're also looking for answers to whether or not this is performative. So we'll be looking for some clues to that. And I'd like to find out also if he'll get Pam Bondi or Ghislaine Maxwell to testify before Congress. Right off the bat, I definitely see some clues here that Mike Johnson definitely thinks that he's doing Trump a favor. I think he's got this mentality that, he's very narrow-minded in that what he believes is good and right is the only possible answer. And I think that he believes that by demanding these things, he can be the one to kind of set Trump free in a way. And that's what I'm getting from these cards here, is that he is doing this as a favor. And let's hope that he goes with that and just runs with that mentality, because what he's going to end up doing is giving Trump just enough rope to, hanged man himself. Wow, came through loud and clear. So let's get 3 more for the right side to kind of give us some information on these questions. I think Mike Johnson also wants to be a hero. I think he really likes praise, and he really likes being the guy that fixed things. Oh, yeah, definitely. He's seeing this as an opportunity to invest in himself and his connections with Trump and the regime, and to win brownie points or score brownie points. Absolutely. That's absolutely what's coming through here. He sees it as this could make him, this could really put him on the map. For what? I don't know what he's thinking. Like, why would you want to be on that map, Mike Johnson? He does. For some reason, he does. Against all logic, that's what the man's going for. He really, truly thinks that by doing this, that he can uncover, the truth that he believes in. Wow. Holy cow. I guess it kind of answered all my questions in that one spread. Let's try to keep going, though. So, yeah, this is not performative, guys. Mike Johnson's serious, and he really thinks Trump's innocent. That's why he's pushing for this, is he wants to be the winner. He wants to be the guy that saves the day. So, let's talk about Mike Johnson and Pam Bondi. Will he successfully get her in front of Congress to testify? Oh, gosh. So that's the tug of war card, which makes sense at a time like this. It definitely makes sense. Oh, gosh. This is, I swear, this whole administration is just a big clown show, you guys. This is crazy. Oddly enough, I think Mike's got something financial at stake here. Something he's trying to grow. Something he is, not only does he see this as a way to be the hero of the day for Donald Trump, the guy who saves Donald Trump, but there's something financial riding on this situation. And like, you know, with the Two of Pentacles, it's like the physical exchange of money and trade and worldly things. And then we have this immediate polar opposite right next to it, you know, where like there's poverty, there is, you know, being in need. And so then at the center, you know, obviously this is like growth and growing wealth, most likely here, but at the center, we've got the tug of war card, the Five of Wands. So it's like, what is he warring with? Is this him warring with something, or is it just a war in general? Like, who's at war here? Like, what is going on? And keep in mind, this question is regarding, like, will he get Pam Bondi successfully in front of Congress to testify about this stuff? I think he's got a big plan for if he can get her there. He's got some type of strategy that he's going to try to execute to make this situation better. Yep, that's exactly what it is. Right there's the card that kind of restates that. This is about alliances. This is about working together. This is a card of work. He's most likely going behind the scenes and saying, hey, if we work together, we can find a way out of this dark situation. Yeah, and so here's a card of like hanging on with the Four of Pentacles, like hold on, you know, let's keep working towards this. Let's keep fighting for this. Let me scoot my camera over just a smidge. So we're definitely seeing him build a strategy here of how to tackle this situation. And I believe this is his energy coming in right here for sure with the Hierophant card. Mike Johnson may be what ruins this whole situation for the rest of us, because I want to see Trump held to account for what he did. What about Ghislaine Maxwell? Let's get 7 cards down for her. And by the way, to answer the question, I do think that Mike is going to do everything he can to get Pam Bondi in front of Congress. So I think the answer to that, although it's not clearly there, it really seems like he's going to do everything to get her there, because he's got a plan for how this will play out. But what about Ghislaine Maxwell? Because now, you know, that's a whole other story. Probably deserves a whole other video. Sorry if this is running kind of long. I'll trim it down as much as I can so it doesn't take forever to get through. I do have a tendency to ramble. Ghislaine Maxwell. So I have a card of something to celebrate coming in here. The Fool. This is a, you know, like a new undertaking, new territory, maybe not even knowing where you're going. The Happy Ending card. Holy cow. What is that doing here? And basically cruelty. Cruelty and fear. Ghislaine Maxwell. Come through for us, Ghislaine Maxwell. I think we're seeing something from her perspective here. I think she is the one who thinks that being able to testify in front of Congress would be kind of her happy ending. It would be her reason to celebrate. And there could be this sense that, if she doesn't get the opportunity, because I feel like this is, a new opportunity. If she doesn't get it, she's, got these two happy cards with this one in the center. She's very afraid of how things are going to go for her. And let me just say that by that, I mean, like her life possibly being in danger. I feel like there's this sense of like two concepts colliding right here of like on one side, there is a chance for happiness and for redemption, maybe freedom, like all the good things she could possibly want right now. And I'm not saying, listen, before you all hit the comments and start typing paragraphs, I'm not saying that anything can redeem her. I'm talking about from her point of view. For her, redemption would mean another chance to speak to the public, to tell what she knows, to come clean. That's what I'm talking about. So let's get the next three cards and see what we can see. Ghislaine Maxwell. I've never tapped into her energy before, so we may be on shaky ground a little bit here. We'll get as close as we can, though. And I think we are getting close, but I think we're getting just vague energy from her. This is one of my favorite cards. I love the meaning of this card. I read something recently talking about the elements mixing of this card and how, when you mix water and earth, you just get mud. And I always say, like, take the cup. I don't want the damn cup. This is just not being happy. She's not happy. Deception, choices. Now, what could these three cards together mean? That's what we need to know. I think there is some type of reference here to there's something that didn't come out. There's something that she needs to tell. And I don't know if it's just about Trump. It probably is. But there may be something else, too, that she needs to tell. I feel like these three cards are telling us that she doesn't want to go to her grave without the opportunity to say these things because they're that important. There is no clear answer here as to whether or not she will get the opportunity to do that before Congress. Now, arguably, to play devil's advocate once again, we do have the Three of Cups here. And also we have the Ten of Cups. And those are two pretty good cards, but I think in context they meant something else. But it is possible that this could be a clue that she might get her chance. Let's get three more cards. Will Ghislaine get her chance to testify in front of Congress? Speaking the truth, no matter who it hurts. Interesting. Choices up in the air. Yeah, okay. She knows exactly what she's going to do. And I'm going to say that the cards, this last three set here, this is her getting to speak her truth. I think there's a good chance that Ghislaine Maxwell will get to speak in front of Congress. And it may have something to do with if Mike Johnson gets his way. Because keep in mind, he's not real smart. Like, he's a one-track mind, I think. We didn't get any court cards here, really, to kind of give us an idea of his personality. But just based on what I know about him, I think he's very, very nearsighted. But I think depending on how things go with Pam Bondi, if it looks like Mike Johnson's plan is going to work with Pam, then he might reluctantly be like, you know what? Yeah, hell yeah, let's bring Ghislaine in here. And then that might give Ghislaine the chance to speak the truth. And it's going to be a harsh truth. It's going to be a truth that's going to really hurt a lot of people, as it should. I mean, if the truth is the truth, no matter how ugly and awful it is, it should be spoken. So, and then here is like, there are so many things that she can tell. I think she knows a lot more than anybody realizes. And I think she's got a pretty solid plan for herself and for how to release this information. So why doesn't she write a book? She should just do a tell-all book. That would make sense. All right, guys. Sorry if this video is insanely long. I normally like to keep them short, but we just had so much to cover here. I appreciate y'all for watching, especially if you watched all the way to this point. Thank you so much. It means a lot. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you like political divination, feel free to stick around, click the subscribe, and hang out with us. And leave me a comment. Let me know what your take is on all this stuff. We will see, I guess, coming up in the not so distant future how this all plays out. I think this is going to be playing out for quite some time, though, unfortunately. I think we're talking about years at this point. I don't think we're going to see a resolution to this debacle in a week or a month. You know what I mean? So, okay, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week and a great weekend, and I will see you in the next video.